This is the beginning of part 3 with my interview with Bob Flitton. This is Rob Flitton. So we just finished talking about you like to play poker with the older folks there and take their money, and you seem to have a little bit of glee in your face there, enjoy thinking back about that.
Well, it's always fun to win, isn't it?
Why don't you play poker today then?
I don't know. I play bridge.
You liked the cards though. You liked the action. You were a confident young guy and you wanted to get started. You met Jane. You guys got married right away.
Well, but back in those days, I played poker because it became a fairly good source of income for me. I mean, it gave me gas for my gas tank. It gave me food to eat. I wasn't making a lot of money, and any coins that I could get in a poker game was a welcome addition.
I suppose back in those days you just didn't go to your parents and ask for money, right?
Oh no, you wouldn't think of it.
It just wasn't done.
No. Everybody was out for themselves. There wasn't a lot of money around in those days. I think today that those were the best years that anybody could have been raised. It was really down to earth. Everything was natural. There's none of this artificial stuff. There wasn't a lot of politics. It was really a good music era. It was the days that when people like Elvis Presley were becoming known, and wonderful, wonderful music.
So it's what we would call, I call a sense of life. It was a wonderful sense of life.
Absolutely.
The era.
Yeah. It's just, it's unfortunate that people today couldn't have lived in those days to understand what life really should be like in many ways. I had a big balloon tire bike as a young teenager that I rode for miles and miles. And, I look back today, I could have easily been an Olympic bicyclist. But eventually I got jobs working in grocery stores, delivering groceries on my bike. We had a big basket on the front of the bike made out of steel that you could put quite a large box in, and I had a box in that, and I put bags of groceries in it and delivered them to people's homes.
And so what did you do with all your money when you saved it up? What kind of things would you like to buy?
Well, the point is, you never saved money because you never had enough to save. We didn't make a lot of money. So, one thing, looking back on life, if I was to do something different today, I think the one thing that I would really focus on is teaching my kids how to save money. Saving money is something you have to learn, but if you ever learn to do it, you're so much better off. Instead of going out and buying a bag of peanuts, take the 25 cents and throw it in a jar. If everybody did that every day, they'd be amazed how much better off they'd be in life.
You started out with a lot of responsibility though when you were young. By the time you were 20 ish, you had a kid, a son, me. You had right thereafter your second son, Bill. You had a wife at home. You had 2 young kids, so there was a lot of pressure on your money. Like,
I had 4 young kids.
Yeah, your wife's brothers.
David and Ian Morrison
Yeah.
came to live in our home.
By the time you're 22, so how do you?
Because their father was an alcoholic and their mother had passed away, and they were, in a sense, left alone in life, so they came to live with us.
That's a lot of responsibility, though.
I had a huge amount of responsibility.
How did that feel? Daunting?
No, I think it disadvantaged everybody because nobody got all the things they should have got. They were entitled to in those days, but we got through it. It was a good experience in some ways, but it was a burden, but we got through it. You probably paid a price for it because you didn't get the attention you might have got. Bill the same.
Yeah. Did you, where did you and Jane get married?
Port Alberta.
Did you have a long engagement, or was it one of those, hey, will you marry me things and just happened?
Yeah, like back in those days, it was common to be married by 19 or 20. In fact, a lot of people were getting married at 16, 17, 18. So
You were like an old widow as a woman if you weren't married by 25, right?
oh, absolutely. you know, we're 19, it's time to get married, let's get married. And, why we got married, I don't know. 2 weeks after I was married, I thought, what the hell did I do that for? It just wasn't the right decision. My dad tried to tell me, I wouldn't listen to him.
Was that pretty common with fathers and sons and mothers and daughters?
I guess so.
And then your sister got married right away too. Like, wasn't she married right before you were?
Yeah, before I was, yeah.
And,
She was probably 19 when she got married, yeah.
So you had a lot of activity going on, and all of a sudden you find out you're going to be a father.
Happens.
So I was born in December '62.
You were born on that West Coast General Hospital, same hospital I was born in, but you were born after they rebuilt a new hospital. And I remember in those days you weren't allowed to be in the room when your wife was pregnant. They wouldn't even think of it. Nobody even talked about that. But I remember the nurse coming down to me and saying, "You have a son," and I thought, geez, I was over the moon. Where can I go and buy a basketball or something to give to him? You know, it was just, it was really nice to know that I had a son. And then I made the biggest mistake of my life, which was gave him the same name I had. I don't know why the hell we did that. That was stupid.
But your sister was pregnant right around that time too.
That's right, but Janice Hansen, who today is a lawyer, lives in Victoria, and she has a son.
She was born a couple months after I was. And then, so I'm born, and you move, you and Jane and the little boy, you moved to New Westminster, Vancouver.
Yeah,
What happened?
I was working for, God, I can't remember the order now. I was working for McMillan Bloedel. Got tired of doing that, and I said to a friend of mine, I'd like to be a salesman. How do you get to be a salesman? And he said, Bob, you want to be a salesman, go and sell something. Just learn by on the job. So I went over to Vancouver and looked around, and I found out that the big automobile dealership of the day, the one that was advertising, you saw it all the time on television. I mean, it was really well known. It was Trap Motors in New Westminster. So I went into Trap Motors in New Westminster. This was an interesting thing. I went in one day and I asked for the sales manager. Sat down with him, and I said, I'm looking for a job. And he said, well, tell me something about yourself. What's your name? And I said, my name is Rob Flitton. And he said, do you know Frank Flitton? And I said, yes, that's my father. And he says, you're hired. It was that easy. I got to work for Trap Motors. And working for them was extremely fascinating because they were a closer dealership, C-L-O-S-E-R, closer. And anybody that's involved in sales, successful sales, knows about closing. So they trained you that when a customer came in to look at a car, you asked them for the keys to their car so that you could have somebody go and look at it. You asked them for their registration for their car. So you know, give them whatever reason you want it, but I need the registration for your car, I need the keys for your car. And the keys had to go to the sales manager, and the registration had to go to the office manager. And those people could not leave that dealership until they had finished dealing with me. I had exhausted them as a customer. And then the sales manager exhausted them as a customer. And then the office manager exhausted them as a customer. So they had you trapped. And coincidentally, the name of the place was Trap Motors. And there was even a story in the news, this is a true story, where a customer went in and wouldn't buy a car, wouldn't do a deal, and the sales manager took their car keys and threw them on the roof of the building. Said, you're not leaving unless you buy a car, and he chucked their keys up on the roof. This was in the news. That's how hard pressure they were as a sales company. So for me, it was a wonderful learning experience.
And that was, what, a few months you spent there? You lived in New Westminster?
Well, I left there, and then I got tired of the nonsense, the BS going on, the high pressure sales. So I walked across the street to a place called Westminster Motors, which is a Chevrolet dealership, and talked to the sales manager there, and I said, you know, I'm working over at Trap Motors, but I don't like it. I'd rather get into a better dealership. And he said, well, come on over and work with us. So I started on a Saturday at Westminster Motors, and I remember they sold 5 cars that day, 5 used cars, and I sold 3 of them. And I was on a trial basis, see how I could make out. And of course, the manager confirmed that day that I was now permanent. And his name was Cranston. And he left Westminster Motors and went to Prince George, a company called Fred Wall's Ford dealership in Prince George. And I was sorry to see him go because I got along really well with him. And then a week later he came back to Westminster Motors on an afternoon and came in and said to me, Bob, you know, I'm now working in Prince George, a place called Fred Wall's, and we need a really good car salesman up there. Why don't you come up with me? So
That's how you got to Prince George,
we
which
packed
was
our bags and we moved to Prince George.
next section.